Let me tell you about a movie where the real horror wasn't on screen, it was behind the camera. Stanley Kubrick pushed his cast and crew to the edge, turning the set into a nightmare that some never recovered from. Here are 50 weird facts you never knew about The Shining. Number 1. Kubrick wanted Nicholson from the beginning. It's impossible now to picture anyone other than Jack Nicholson swinging that axe and snarling, "Here's Johnny!"
Here's Johnny!
But that was exactly what Stanley Kubrick wanted from the start. From day one, Nicholson was his guy. He saw Jack's wild energy and thought it was perfect for Jack Torrance, a man slipping into madness. Still, the studio wanted backup options. More on these later. Stephen King, who famously hated Nicholson's casting, said the proposed choices didn't fit. But Kubrick never wavered. He believed Nicholson could embody the slow unraveling of Jack Torrance like no one else. Looking back, it's hard to argue. Nicholson didn't just play the role, he became it, cementing one of the most chilling performances in horror history. Number 2. The Grady twins are not twins in the book. Few images in horror history are as unsettling as the Grady twins, standing side by side in their pale blue dresses, silently staring at Danny in the Overlook's hallway. They have become the stuff of nightmares, an image burned into pop culture forever. But here's what most people don't know. In Stephen King's novel, they were not twins at all. They were sisters, described as being about 8 and 10 years old. When Stanley Kubrick cast identical twins Lisa and Louise Burns, everything changed. Their mirrored presence created a disturbing sense of symmetry and added to the hotel's feeling of unnatural order. That single change from the book made the ghosts infinitely creepier. The Grady twins are now one of the most iconic visuals in horror, proving that sometimes a small casting choice can leave the biggest mark. Number 3, an iconic line was improvised. If there is one line from The Shining that everyone remembers, it is Jack Nicholson's crazed,
"Here's Johnny!"
The funny thing is, that moment was never in the script. Nicholson improvised it on the spot, borrowing from Ed McMahon's famous introduction of Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's Johnny!
The reference flew right over Stanley Kubrick's head, since he lived in England and had no clue who Carson was. He nearly cut it out, but thankfully kept it in. That same scene had another layer of realism. Nicholson really hacked through a solid wooden door with an axe. Because of his past as a volunteer firefighter, he was so skilled at chopping that the crew had to replace the door multiple times. The mix of improvisation and genuine destruction created one of the most unforgettable moments in horror cinema. Number 4. Kubrick made Shelley Duvall do 127 takes of a single scene. Shelley Duvall's performance as Wendy Torrance looks like pure terror, and that is exactly what Stanley Kubrick wanted. The problem is, he pushed her to the breaking point to get it. Kubrick was notoriously cruel to Duvall on set, often berating her in front of everyone to keep her emotionally drained and on edge. The most extreme case came during the famous staircase scene, where Wendy swings a baseball bat at Jack while backing away in tears. Kubrick forced her to shoot that scene 127 times, demanding she do it again and again until she was physically and emotionally exhausted. That grueling process set the world record for the most takes of a spoken dialogue scene in film history. The toll was devastating. Duvall's hair reportedly fell out, and she later admitted she suffered a near breakdown during filming. Number 5. It took 1 year to get the shot of blood pouring out of the elevator. Few images in horror are as haunting as the elevator scene when torrents of blood gush out and flood the Overlook's hallway. You would think such a short shot would be simple, but this is Stanley Kubrick we are talking about. He managed to capture it in just 3 takes, which sounds efficient until you realize that each take required 9 full days to reset and clean the set. That meant weeks of downtime every time the blood did not look quite right. On the first 2 tries, Kubrick insisted it did not look realistic enough. The color, the flow, the way it moved down the hall, it all had to be perfect. By the time the director was satisfied, nearly an entire year had passed. That obsessive attention gave us one of the most unforgettable shots in horror history. Number 6. Kubrick called Stephen King at 3 a.m. to ask if he believed in God. Stanley Kubrick was famously private about his beliefs, often dismissing the idea of God as absurd, though he left room for doubt. Stephen King has told a strange story about Kubrick during the making of The Shining. According to King, Kubrick phoned him at 3 in the morning and bluntly asked, "Do you believe in God?" The story shifts depending on when King tells it. In one version, he said yes, and Kubrick immediately hung up. In another, Kubrick replied, "I knew it." In yet another, he told King, "No, I don't think there is a God." King has also recalled Kubrick asking if ghost stories prove optimism, since they imply life after death. When King countered with, "What about hell?" Kubrick simply answered, "I do not believe in hell." Whatever the truth, the late-night call remains a haunting mystery. Number 7. It was a quick turnaround of an adaptation. When you think about movie adaptations, they usually take years to move from page to screen. That was not the case with The Shining. Stephen King published the novel in 1977, and just 3 years later, audiences were watching Jack Nicholson spiral into madness on the big screen. For a story as complex and haunting as King's, that timeline was lightning fast. Stanley Kubrick wasted no time in snapping up the rights and reworking the story into his own vision. King's fans were still buzzing about the novel when the film hit theaters, which helped build anticipation but also created tension. Readers expected a faithful adaptation, but Kubrick had very different ideas. That quick turnaround meant the movie was riding directly on the book's fresh success, even though Kubrick's version would soon divide audiences and infuriate King himself. Number 8. Jack repeatedly looks directly into the camera throughout the movie. Most people remember The Shining for its eerie set design, impossible hallways, and creeping sense of dread. But there is another detail hidden in plain sight that only recently came to light. Italian Kubrick scholar Filippo Olivieri discovered that Jack Torrance repeatedly looks straight into the camera, beginning subtly early in the film and growing more obvious as the story unravels. At first, these stares happen while Jack talks to the Overlook's ghosts, which could be dismissed as acting choices. But Olivieri noticed Jack also breaks the fourth wall at random moments, as if glaring at the audience. The effect is unsettling, like Jack knows we are watching and is pulling us into his madness. Kubrick never explained it, but it feels intentional, a signal of Jack's fractured mind and the hotel's haunting grip. Number 9. Child actor Danny Lloyd invented the weird finger thing. The Shining was young Danny Lloyd's first acting gig. Despite auditioning for several parts in later years, Danny would only land one more acting job, a small role in the TV movie Will, the autobiography of G. Gordon Liddy, 1982. Despite his complete lack of acting experience going into The Shining, 5-year-old Lloyd was chosen over thousands of other children. He was called a phenomenon with an astonishing face and control of himself. The kid even shaped the movie. During a casting call, he came up with the creepy idea to hold up his finger when speaking as Tony. So now, you can partially blame that toddler for your nightmares instead of just Kubrick. Number 10. People think Kubrick made The Shining as an apology for faking the moon landing. One of the wildest conspiracy theories around The Shining is that Kubrick secretly used it to confess to faking the moon landing. The theory goes like this. The U.S. government supposedly hired Kubrick to stage Neil Armstrong's famous walk on the moon, and he carried the guilt with him for years. Instead of flowers and chocolate, his apology came in the form of cryptic movie clues. Believers point to Danny's Apollo 11 sweater, the heavy use of Tang, the powdered drink NASA astronauts loved, and even Room 237, since the moon is roughly 237,000 miles away. Oh, and those creepy twins? They're said to represent NASA's Gemini space program. It's all a stretch, but hey, this theory has taken on a life of its own. Number 11. Nicholson's cheese sandwich fury. To embody Jack Torrance's seething madness, Jack Nicholson subjected himself to a bizarre form of self-torture. eating nothing but cheese sandwiches. The problem? Nicholson absolutely hated cheese sandwiches. For 2 straight weeks leading up to filming, that was all he ate. Every bite made him more irritable, more disgusted, and more ready to snap. It was Nicholson's twisted method of fueling Jack's volatile temper with genuine frustration. By the time he arrived on set, the actor wasn't just pretending to be on edge. He truly was. That simmering hostility leaked into every glare, every growl, and every terrifying outburst. Sometimes madness doesn't come from ghosts or haunted hotels. It comes from too many cheese sandwiches. Okay, quick pause. Are you guys loving these shining facts so far? If you are, smash that like button so YouTube knows to keep pushing this video to other horror fans. And hey, make sure you're subscribed because we've got even crazier movie breakdowns coming your way. All right, back to the madness inside the Overlook Hotel. Number 12. Kubrick did 148 takes of a single close-up shot, driving a man to tears. Scatman Crothers, who played the kind-hearted cook Dick Halloran, was not a trained actor. He was a jazz musician and a longtime friend of Jack Nicholson, who convinced Stanley Kubrick to cast him in the role. What should have been a dream job quickly became a nightmare. Kubrick was infamous for endless retakes, and while seasoned actors struggled under his demands, Crothers had it even harder. During a simple kitchen conversation where Halloran explains The Shining to Danny, Kubrick made him do 148 takes of a single close-up. Crothers tried to push through, but eventually broke down in tears, begging, "What do you want, Stanley?" What do you want? Kubrick never gave him a clear answer. That heartbreaking moment set a record for the most takes of a simple shot and showed just how brutal Kubrick's methods could be. Number 13, the endless efforts to get the big wheel Steadicam shot exactly right. Few scenes in The Shining are as hypnotic as Danny cruising the Overlook's hallways on his big wheel, the camera gliding smoothly just a few inches off the ground. That seamless shot came courtesy of the then-new Steadicam, operated by its own inventor, Garrett Brown. Brown had to trail behind Danny with a 60-pound rig strapped to his body, which left him gasping after each 3-minute take. At first, the crew tried mounting the camera on a skateboard, then a wheelbarrow, but neither worked. Eventually, they rigged a wheelchair for Brown to ride while another crew member pushed him behind Danny. And because it was Kubrick, they repeated the shot more than 30 times. The result was worth it. The low, floating perspective, paired with the eerie sound of wheels shifting from carpet to wood, became one of horror's most iconic sequences. If you're still with us, you're officially shining. Hit like, so this nightmare keeps spreading like Jack Nicholson's grin. Number 14. The production used over 900 tons of salt. One of the things that makes The Shining so chilling is its setting. The Overlook Hotel isn't just haunted, it's trapped under mountains of snow, cut off from the outside world for months at a time. To pull this off, Kubrick's crew had to create a convincing winter wonderland indoors. For falling snow, they shredded styrofoam into fine flakes. But the ground cover had to look and crunch like the real thing, so they turned to dendritic dairy salt. By the time shooting wrapped, the team had dumped over 900 tons of the stuff on set. That's almost 1 million pounds of snow shoveled, spread, and reset across the film's grueling 250-day shoot. The result? The hedge maze finale looks bone-chillingly real. So real, you can almost feel the frostbite. Number 15, the film was shot mostly in chronological order. Most films are not shot in the order we see them. Studios usually build schedules around locations, budgets, and actor availability. But Kubrick wasn't most directors. For The Shining, he insisted on shooting almost entirely in chronological order. This decision stretched what was supposed to be a 100-day production into a grueling 250-day marathon. Why? Kubrick wanted to allow for script adjustments on the fly, tailoring the story as performances evolved. Cameraman Garrett Brown explained it best. It's his nature to want to control everything, but he wants to preserve spontaneity. That paradox, obsessive control while chasing raw, in-the-moment energy, is exactly what makes The Shining feel so uncomfortably alive. Every breakdown, every descent into madness wasn't just scripted, it was lived day by day in order. Stephen King wasn't thrilled about Nicholson either. He argued Nicholson looked crazy from the start, which undercut Jack's gradual descent. King thought actors like Michael Moriarty or Jon Voight, guys who seemed ordinary, would sell the unraveling better. Still, Nicholson's manic performance became iconic, proving Kubrick's instincts were dead on. Number 16. Danny Lloyd had no idea he was making a horror movie. While Kubrick pushed adults to their breaking point, he took the opposite approach with 5-year-old Danny Lloyd. Since it was the boy's very first acting role, Kubrick shielded him from the terrifying nature of The Shining. Lloyd was told he was starring in a drama, not a horror film, and his scenes were carefully staged so he never witnessed anything disturbing. For example, during the sequence where Wendy accuses Jack of hurting Danny, the child in her arms isn't Lloyd at all, it's a dummy dressed in his clothes. To protect him further, Kubrick later arranged a special, cleaned-up version of the movie for Lloyd to watch. He wouldn't see the unedited horror classic until he turned 17, long after he had unknowingly delivered one of the most iconic child performances in cinema history. Number 17. The set burned down because the Overlook was tired of cooperating. While filming The Shining, a fire broke out on the soundstage at Elstree Studios, and it wasn't just a little spark, it wiped out a big portion of the Overlook hotel set. Now, accidents happen. But if you believe in curses or bad vibes, it's almost like the Overlook itself decided it had had enough of Stanley Kubrick's endless retakes and said, "That's it, I quit." Here's some flames for you. The blaze forced production to shut down for a bit, but instead of panicking, Kubrick actually took it as an opportunity to rebuild the set to his exacting standards, which in true Kubrick fashion meant things took even longer. Nothing says fun workplace like recreating a haunted hotel while everyone's already mentally fried. Number 18. The Overlook's set was basically its own zip code. Kubrick wasn't about to settle for some cardboard walls and a couple of fake hallways for this project, so he did what any normal director would have done and had the Overlook Hotel's interiors built at Elstree Studios, and the result was one of the biggest indoor film sets ever constructed. We're talking the lobby, endless hallways, the Gold Room, the Colorado Lounge. Basically, if you saw it in the movie, someone spent weeks hammering it together under Kubrick's watchful eye. The place was so massive that crew members genuinely got lost walking around, which probably did wonders for their nerves. Imagine coming in for a shift, coffee in hand, and realizing you've accidentally wandered into a ballroom that feels like it might already have ghosts on payroll. Number 19. The Gold Room bar scene wasn't even in the original plan. Believe it or not, that unforgettable scene where Jack Torrance sits down for a drink with Lloyd, the world's least reassuring bartender, wasn't part of the script at first. Kubrick decided mid-production that he wanted to lean harder into the Overlook's supernatural side, and so suddenly, the Gold Room bar scene was born. The crew had to rush build the set, and poor Joe Turkel, who played Lloyd, was told more or less, "Congrats, you're now the ghostly enabler of Jack Nicholson's descent into madness." To his credit, Turkel nailed that blank, unnerving stare like he'd been haunting hotels his whole life. The whole thing feels like Kubrick just woke up one morning and thought, "This movie needs more booze and more ghosts." And somehow he was absolutely right. Number 20. The lighting could have powered a small town. Kubrick wanted every shadow, every gleam of light on the hotel walls to feel deliberate and eerie. To pull it off, the crew flooded the sets at Elstree Studios with massive high-wattage lights, so many in fact, that they nearly maxed out the studio's electrical system. At times they worried the entire place would short out or plunge into blackout. The heat from those lamps was another nightmare. Actors sweated through take after take, and the crew kept fire extinguishers nearby in case Kubrick's artistic vision literally burst into flames. Imagine trying to deliver your lines while feeling like you're in a sauna that could catch fire any second. Number 21, his secretary had to write the same line over and over for 500 pages in 5 different languages. One of the most chilling moments in The Shining is when Wendy finally looks at Jack's manuscript. Page after page, all she finds is the same haunting sentence: "All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy." It is the proof that Jack has completely lost his mind. Stanley Kubrick could have had a handful of pages typed up, but that was not his style. He demanded his secretary, Margaret Warrington, type out 500 full pages. To make it more convincing, some pages even had typos and odd formatting. For international releases, Kubrick went even further. He had her repeat the task in French, German, Italian, and Spanish, each with its own proverb. That obsessive detail meant foreign audiences got the same chilling discovery in their own language, making the scene universally terrifying. Number 22. The hedge maze scene took a month to film. The chilling climax where Jack chases Danny through the Overlook's hedge maze looks terrifyingly smooth on screen, but behind the scenes, it was a logistical nightmare. According to IMDb, the sequence took an entire month to shoot. The maze itself was a massive set built on the studio lot, with walls so high and winding that even the crew couldn't keep their bearings. Walkie-talkies became essential, not just for communication, but for finding a way out whenever someone got lost. The fake snow made navigation even tougher, and every reset after a take meant hours of preparation. Meanwhile, the actors had to endure freezing conditions under the hot studio lights. The result, though, was worth it. The maze chase is one of the most iconic finales in horror history: claustrophobic, frantic, and unforgettable. Number 23, why Room 217 became Room 237. In Stephen King's novel, the most haunted spot in the Overlook Hotel is Room 217. But when Kubrick adapted the story for the screen, that room number suddenly became 237. Why the change? It came at the request of the Timberline Lodge in Oregon, which served as the exterior for the Overlook. The hotel staff worried that if audiences saw Room 217 in a terrifying context, guests would refuse to stay there in real life. To protect future business, Kubrick agreed to alter the number. Since there was no Room 237 at the Timberline, there was no risk of bad publicity. Ironically, the decision backfired in a way. Today, horror fans often request to stay in Room 217 at the Timberline because it has become a legendary number thanks to King's novel. Number 24. Shelley Duvall's health suffered during filming. Shelley Duvall's performance as Wendy Torrance is unforgettable, but it came at a steep personal cost. Duvall later revealed that Stanley Kubrick's relentless directing style deeply affected her health. In David Hughes' biography of Kubrick, she recalled, "I was really in and out of ill health because the stress of the role was so great. Stanley pushed me and prodded me further than I've ever been pushed before. It's the most difficult role I've ever had to play. Between the endless retakes, Kubrick's constant pressure, and the emotional demands of portraying a terrified wife on the edge, Duvall endured both physical and psychological strain. Her hair reportedly began falling out from the stress."
There's no desperation. Oh, come on. What do you mean roll
2
video?
seconds.
We're killing ourselves out here, and you've got to be ready.
I am too. I'm standing right
But
here.
when you
Go.
do it, you've got to look desperate, Shelley. You're just wasting everybody's time now.
Yet despite the toll, her raw, fragile, and terrified portrayal of Wendy became one of the most authentic performances in horror history. Number 25. The "Here's Johnny" scene took 3 days to film.
Here's Johnny.
The bathroom scene in The Shining is pure nightmare fuel. Jack Nicholson hacking through the door with an axe before leaning in to snarl, "Here's Johnny," has become one of the most famous images in movie history. What most people do not realize is how grueling it was to film. According to Shelley Duvall, it took 3 full days to shoot and required 60 different doors. Every time Nicholson smashed through, the crew had to reset with a brand new one. Kubrick's perfectionism meant nothing less than absolute terror would do, no matter the cost in time or materials. The effort paid off. Decades later, Play.com ran a study measuring audience heart rates and declared it the single most frightening movie scene of all time. Those 3 long days on set created a moment that still terrifies viewers everywhere. We're only halfway through this madhouse, and we've still got a pile of even weirder shining secrets waiting. Subscribe now, because the really deranged stuff is just getting started. And definitely don't get cozy. The creepiest, most unhinged theories are coming up next. Number 26, the bear suit scene might be about abuse, and now you'll never unsee it. Even if you've only seen The Shining once, chances are the bear suit scene is permanently burned into your memory. It's bizarre, it's unsettling, and it comes completely out of nowhere. But some critics and fans argue it isn't random at all. It may be Kubrick hinting at Danny's unspoken trauma. In Stephen King's novel, there's a subplot involving a party guest in a dog costume, and Kubrick seems to twist that into something far more sinister. While he never confirmed any deeper meaning, film analysts have long suggested that the disturbing imagery is symbolic, a way of exposing hidden abuse without ever naming it directly. Others say it's just surreal nightmare fuel. Either way, once you've noticed it, the Overlook's menacing bear is impossible to unsee. Number 27. There are hidden faces in the walls. Because the hotel is always watching. Spend enough time pausing The Shining, and let's be honest, plenty of fans have, and you'll notice something unnerving. In the wallpaper patterns, the furniture textures, even in the drifting clouds of the opening shot, faces seem to appear. Not the warm, smiling kind either, more the hope you weren't planning on sleeping tonight kind. This effect, whether intentional or not, taps into pareidolia, the psychological tendency to see images or faces where none were designed. Kubrick's reputation for meticulous set design has led some critics, like Rob Ager in his video essays, to argue that these patterns were crafted on purpose, designed to keep viewers subconsciously unsettled. One long-running fan theory even claims Kubrick snuck his own face into the clouds. Real or not, it fits the vibe. In The Overlook, you're never really alone. Number 28. The Overlook is sitting on a Native American burial ground because horror tropes demand it. Yes, the Overlook Hotel being built on a Native American burial ground is a classic horror setup, but Kubrick didn't stop at the cliché. He layered the film with subtle indigenous imagery that most viewers probably don't consciously notice. From wall patterns to the ceremonial masks in the lobby, some critics argue that Kubrick was commenting on the consequences of colonialism and the exploitation of sacred land, though he never explicitly confirmed this. Of course, it also works on a simpler level. It just makes the hotel feel wrong in a way you can't quite put your finger on. Either way, the Overlook isn't just haunted by ghosts, it's haunted by history, guilt, and the uncomfortable feeling that maybe we shouldn't be here at all. Number 29. Room 237 might secretly be about the Holocaust. Room 237 has always been one of The Shining's most infamous mysteries, and some theorists take the speculation to an unsettling level. They point out that 2 times 3 times 7 equals 42, which some link to 1942, the year the final solution began during the Holocaust. Given that Kubrick was Jewish, some suggest this might have been his way of embedding historical horror into cinematic horror, confronting real-world terror in a surreal, almost coded way. Of course, there's no definitive proof he intended it, and it's possible he just liked the number 237. Either way, it's a perfect example of how Kubrick layered meaning into every frame. You can watch a haunted hotel movie and still end up thinking about humanity's darkest chapters, all while being terrified of a hotel room. Number 30. The movie might secretly be about CIA mind control. Some fans and theorists have gone as far as to suggest that The Shining isn't just a haunted hotel story, it's a veiled commentary on MK-Ultra, the CIA's notorious mind control experiments. Think about it. Jack's terrifying spiral into madness, Wendy's mounting stress, and Danny's psychic shining could all be read as symptoms of psychological manipulation. Kubrick was famously obsessed with control, and some argue he used the film to explore what happens when the human mind is pushed to its limits, whether by supernatural forces or sinister government programs. It's like he turned the Overlook into a testing lab where paranoia, manipulation, and fear aren't just horror tropes, they're tools. In short, it's a conspiracy buffet served with a side of dread. Number 31. The Overlook's carpets were designed to mess with your head. Those instantly iconic hexagonal carpets winding through the Overlook's hallways weren't just a cool visual, they were custom-made to make the audience feel subtly off balance. Kubrick worked closely with his design team to create patterns that were hypnotic, dizzying, and just a little claustrophobic, so that even without ghosts around, the hotel felt psychologically hostile. Laying all that carpet was no small feat. The crew had to cover miles of floors with those dizzying patterns, probably getting a little nauseous just walking down the hallways themselves. The effect works on screen brilliantly. Every shot makes you just slightly unsure of where you are. In other words, the Overlook isn't just haunted, it's actively trying to scramble your mind, starting from the ground up. Number 32. The Shining is essentially a family drama. While The Shining is celebrated as a terrifying horror film, at its heart it's really a story about a family falling apart. Author and historian John Baxter points out in the DVD commentary that while Stephen King's novel focused on a haunted hotel, Kubrick's version shifted the lens. For him, the real horror was the family unit slowly unraveling, with the Overlook Hotel amplifying their weaknesses. Every brutal scene circles back to family. The strained marriage, the father's rage, the mother's fear, and the child's trauma. Baxter even suggests that this dynamic mirrors Kubrick's own difficulties with his father, who was a major influence in his life. In the end, Jack's madness, Wendy's desperation, and Danny's psychic visions become less about ghosts and more about a family destroying itself under pressure. Number 33. Alcohol might be the real villain. It's easy to blame the ghosts for Jack's descent, but let's be honest. His alcoholism is what really fuels the horror. The Overlook practically encourages it, booze on demand, ghostly bartenders pouring drinks that seem way too strong, and not a single ID check in sight. Jack doesn't just fall victim to supernatural forces, he's spiraling under the influence, and the hotel is more than happy to keep him there. Every drink nudges him further toward violence and madness, turning the Overlook into the ultimate haunted bar where the cocktails come with a side of existential terror. Cheers, indeed, just don't expect to walk out alive. Number 34. Technology dies in the Overlook. If you think your Wi-Fi is unreliable at home, spare a thought for the Overlook Hotel. Phones don't work, the radio cuts out at the worst possible moments, and the snowcat is about as functional as a haunted tricycle. It's like Kubrick designed the hotel to be the ultimate tech graveyard, a place where modern conveniences go to die. The only thing that reliably functions? Jack's axe, and even that comes with some seriously deadly consequences. By stripping the characters of any technological lifelines, Kubrick makes isolation feel absolute, turning the Overlook into a place where survival depends entirely on your wits, or your ability to dodge an axe swing. Number 35. Logic is basically forbidden in the Overlook. If you're trying to make sense of The Shining, good luck. Kubrick wasn't playing that game. The hotel's layout doesn't follow any architectural logic, timelines twist and loop, and the ghosts do whatever they want, whenever they want. It's like stepping into a dream where the rules of reality are optional and often cruel. Kubrick didn't want viewers to figure everything out. He wanted us to feel the movie, and that feeling is pure existential dread, amplified by hypnotic carpet patterns and endless hallways. In the Overlook, reason takes a permanent vacation, leaving paranoia, fear, and a sense of inescapable doom in its place. Number 36. Kubrick recut the film after its premiere, because he couldn't stop tweaking. Only Stanley Kubrick would release The Shining to theaters, let people actually watch it, and then decide, not finished. After the US premiere in 1980, he personally ordered theaters to snip out about 2 minutes of footage. a hospital epilogue where Wendy and Danny recover after escaping the Overlook. The scene even included Ullman, Jack's boss, visiting them, which made the film's ending feel a little less bleak. But Kubrick, being Kubrick, apparently thought it undercut the movie's haunting ambiguity, so he yanked it. Projectionists literally had to remove the reels and send the deleted footage back. No warning, no real explanation, just Kubrick casually rewriting reality after the fact. The man didn't just make movies, he treated them like living organisms he could keep operating on indefinitely. Number 37. The European cut was a leaner, meaner Shining. The US version of The Shining clocks in at 144 minutes. But Kubrick decided the European release needed to be tighter, trimming about 25 minutes he felt were dragging the pacing. That meant some scenes, like Wendy and Danny watching TV or extra dialogue exchanges, got the axe. European audiences got a slightly leaner, faster-moving Overlook, while die-hard fans have spent decades hunting for the missing footage, treating it like hidden treasure. It's almost like Kubrick built a secret wing of the hotel just for European viewers, and the rest of us are left wandering the corridors like Danny, trying to find it with our shining powers. Good luck ever seeing those extra minutes. It's the Overlook's little mystery that never dies. Number 38. The costumes were doing half the haunting. Milena Canonero, the costume designer for The Shining, didn't just pick clothes, she built tiny psychological profiles for every character. Jack's red jacket practically screams danger approaching, while Wendy's frumpy, worn-in dresses underline her vulnerability and exhaustion. Danny's sweaters are perfectly innocent on the surface, but the patterns make him feel trapped in a nightmare he can't escape. Canonero even distressed the clothes over time to reflect the character's unraveling. Every stain, crease, and worn edge was intentional. It's subtle work, but brilliant. The costumes aren't just costumes. They're silent storytellers, whispering to the audience, "You're not leaving this hotel the same person you came in as." Watching the film with this in mind makes the Overlook feel even more like a living, breathing trap. Number 39. Kubrick filmed fake scenes just to mess with everyone. Stanley Kubrick had a reputation for being meticulous, but he was also famously secretive. During The Shining, he was so worried about spoilers leaking out that he went full cloak and dagger and filmed extra scenes that were never meant to see the light of day. These weren't minor pickups either. Whole sequences were staged and then quietly discarded, leaving the cast and crew scratching their heads and wondering if they were in on some elaborate prank. It was Kubrick's way of making sure no one outside the production could guess the real ending. And it worked. Audiences had no idea Jack Torrance would meet his icy fate in the hedge maze until opening night. Think of it as Kubrick running his own little spy operation, except instead of classified files, he was guarding a horror movie twist. Number 40. Shelley Duvall's screams were totally real. Shelley Duvall's performance as Wendy Torrance is unforgettable, and part of what makes it so bone-chilling is that her terror on screen wasn't entirely acting. Kubrick was notorious for pushing his actors to their absolute limits, and Duvall endured hundreds of takes for some of the movie's most intense scenes. By the time they filmed the famous staircase sequence, she was physically and emotionally drained, which meant her fear was completely genuine. It's almost impossible to watch without feeling the raw panic she brought to the role. In a way, Kubrick turned the set into a miniature horror experience of its own. Terrifying in real life, not just on film. Duvall's screams, earned, authentic, and unforgettable. If you've made it this far, you're tougher than Kubrick's cast. Drop a comment with the creepiest fact so far, and since the Overlook hasn't eaten you yet, subscribe before it does because the juiciest conspiracies are still on the way. Number 41. Jack might be Kubrick's evil twin. Some fans and theorists have suggested that Jack Torrance is less a fictional character and more a reflection of Kubrick himself. Obsessive, perfectionistic, occasionally cruel, and slowly unraveling under pressure. Whether true or not, it's a compelling lens through which to watch the film. Jack isn't just terrifying, he's an avatar of obsessive control, a warning, and maybe Kubrick poking fun at himself all at once. Number 42. Kubrick hated horror tropes, so he made a movie that hates you back. The Shining didn't follow the usual horror playbook. Kubrick stripped out jump scares, clear villains, and tidy resolutions, replacing them with an oppressive, creeping dread that never lets up. He didn't just break the rules of horror. He torched them, rolled in the ashes, and made sure the audience felt every bit of it. Watching the film is less about scares and more about existential unease, like being trapped in a carefully designed nightmare crafted by a perfectionist with a grudge. Every hallway, shadow, and hexagonal carpet pattern conspires against you. And by the end, you're not just scared, you're exhausted, unnerved, and maybe questioning reality itself. Number 43, the movie is gaslighting you. The endless corridors, the hypnotic carpet patterns, the deliberately disorienting camera angles, and the slow, eerie pacing all work together to make you doubt what you're seeing. Even the music isn't innocent. It creeps into your brain and makes your skin crawl without warning. Watching The Shining feels like being gaslit by a cinematic genius who not only hates your sense of comfort, but also finds subtle joy in your growing unease. By the time the end rolls around, you're questioning what's real, what's imagined, and whether you'll ever feel safe in a hotel or a hallway again. Number 44, the ending is a cosmic joke with no punchline. Jack's frozen face in the hedge maze is one of the most iconic images in horror cinema, but the real terror isn't just him, it's the complete lack of resolution. The Overlook Hotel doesn't get destroyed, the cycle of madness continues, and the ghosts are still very much in charge. Kubrick leaves the audience hanging, staring at the screen, trying to make sense of a nightmare that has no neat ending. It's as if the hotel itself is laughing at you, reminding you that some horrors aren't meant to be solved, they're meant to linger, echoing in your mind long after the credits roll. The Overlook doesn't just trap its characters, it traps everyone watching. Number 45, the final photo is a time loop nightmare. The last shot of The Shining, Jack frozen in the hedge maze, and then that haunting photograph from 1921 might be the ultimate mind twister Kubrick left us with. It's more than just a creepy visual. It's a cosmic punchline. Is Jack somehow reincarnated? Has the Overlook absorbed him into its eternal, haunted soul? Or did he just fail spectacularly to ever leave the hotel behind? The film gives no answers, which is exactly the point. Time in the Overlook doesn't flow like normal. It loops, it bends, it swallows people whole. And Kubrick makes sure we're left squirming in our seats, trying to figure out whether the photo is a warning, a punchline, or just proof that in this hotel, no one ever truly escapes. Number 46, the Overlook is basically a haunted office job. If you squint, Jack Torrance's descent into madness starts to look a lot like the ultimate work from hell scenario. He hates his job, he's frustrated with his family, and the Overlook is this massive, cold, soul-sucking office with endless corridors and no windows to remind you that the outside world exists. Swap out the axe for a malfunctioning printer, the ghosts for passive-aggressive emails, and suddenly, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy feels more like Monday morning at the office than a horror tagline. Kubrick turns the hotel into a corporate nightmare where every hallway is a cubicle, every echo a reminder of your looming deadlines and escaping without going mad? Practically impossible. Number 47, Stephen King still doesn't think The Shining is a very good movie. From day one, Stephen King and Stanley Kubrick never saw eye to eye on The Shining. King wrote his own screenplay that stuck closely to his novel, but Kubrick tossed it aside and teamed up with Diane Johnson to reshape the story. The changes were massive, altered themes, new scenes, and a completely different ending. When the film was released in 1980, critics and audiences were lukewarm, giving King even more reason to feel vindicated. But even now, decades later, King hasn't softened. In a 2014 Rolling Stone interview, he still ripped into Kubrick's version, calling it cold, misogynistic, and claiming Nicholson looked insane from the very first frame. For King, the heart of the novel was missing. For audiences, Kubrick had created one of the greatest horror films ever made. Two visions, forever clashing. Number 48. Stephen King envisioned Wendy as a blonde cheerleader. Stephen King has never held back when critiquing Kubrick's The Shining. One of his biggest issues was Shelley Duvall's casting as Wendy. King imagined Wendy as a blonde cheerleader type, someone who'd lived a carefree life and would be shattered by the horrors of the Overlook. By contrast, he thought Duvall already looked like someone hardened by struggle, making the character's transformation less impactful. Jack Nicholson actually agreed with King at first, suggesting Jessica Lange for the role. But Kubrick had the final word. He wanted Wendy to be fragile, dependent, and emotionally vulnerable, qualities Duvall embodied perfectly. Nicholson later admitted Kubrick was right, praising Duvall's performance as the toughest job of any actor I've seen. Number 49. Both Robert De Niro and Robin Williams were considered for the role of Jack Torrance. Before Jack Nicholson cemented himself as Jack Torrance, Kubrick toyed with some wild casting ideas. Robert De Niro was on the list, but Kubrick dismissed him, saying he wasn't psychotic enough, even after Taxi Driver. Robin Williams, on the other hand, gave Kubrick the exact opposite impression. After watching him play the wacky alien Mork on Mork and Mindy, Kubrick declared Williams was too psychotic for the role. Go figure. Stephen King wasn't thrilled about Nicholson either. He argued Nicholson looked crazy from the start, which undercut Jack's gradual descent. King thought actors like Michael Moriarty or Jon Voight, guys who seemed ordinary, would sell the unraveling better. Still, Nicholson's manic performance became iconic, proving Kubrick's instincts were dead on. Number 50. The Shining wasn't really filmed in Colorado at all. Even though Stephen King set The Shining in the snowy mountains of Colorado, Stanley Kubrick barely went near the place. Almost the entire film was shot at Elstree Studios in Hertfordshire, England. That's right. The Overlook Hotel, with all its endless corridors and cavernous ballrooms, was built just a stone's throw from suburban London. The only bit of real Colorado you're seeing comes from the exterior shots of Timberline Lodge in Oregon, which Kubrick used for the hotel's facade. Everything else? Pure English stagecraft. For audiences, it felt like the remote Rockies. For Kubrick, it was just another day at Elstree, where the haunted hotel basically became its own postal code. And here's a bonus fact for everyone who stayed the course on this monster movie breakdown: Real Weird Movies HQ just so happens to be in Hertfordshire too, just up the road from Elstree Studios, though hopefully with fewer ghosts lurking in the hallways. There you have it. 50 twisted little secrets, theories, and behind-the-scenes horrors from The Shining. You made it out of the Overlook in one piece. Congratulations. Now hit like and subscribe for more twisted dives into classic films like You're Axing Through a Doorway, and drop your creepiest fact in the comments. Careful though. The hotel has a way of listening. Your comment might summon the next video. Wait, what's that on screen right now? Gosh dang it, it's only the next video. There's something real weird about this channel. I'm telling you.
Wow, that was weird.